There is a reason, Capricorn, why you were never fully understood. Why your silence held more power than others shouting. Why you could stand still when the world collapsed, and why, even in the darkest moments, you never truly fell. And it's not because you were just strong. It's because you were chosen. But not in the way people dream of being chosen. Not with applause. Not with gifts. Not with comfort. You were chosen, with trials. You were marked, with storms. You were selected by heaven to carry something that couldn't be placed in just anyone's hands. Because deep inside you, buried beneath layers of endurance, discipline, and sacrifice, there is a weapon. And that weapon was never ordinary. It is not made of steel. It does not glint in sunlight. It does not shout for attention. But it burns quietly, eternally, like fire wrapped in flesh. And here's the truth no one ever told you. They never saw the fire inside you, because it wasn't meant for them to see. It was meant to be awakened only now. Capricorn, this weapon has been inside you all along. But it only begins to move when you are pushed to your absolute limit. When you're left alone. When everything is stripped away. When betrayal becomes your only companion and faith is the only language your soul still speaks. This is why your life was never simple. This is why the climb felt lonely. This is why you walked through seasons others never even noticed, the silent battles, the inner storms, the nights that didn't end until morning found you still standing. Because you were never being punished. You were being prepared. Others looked at you and saw discipline, control, ambition. But what they missed was the divine flame beneath it all. A fire that was never put out, only kept secret until the moment of awakening arrived. And that moment is now. Capricorn, I want you to look back, not to regret, but to recognize. Do you remember the day when everything seemed to fall apart? When someone you trusted left without warning? When doors slammed shut, not gently, but with the kind of finality that echoed through your soul? Do you remember the silence afterward? That wasn't just emptiness. That was the furnace. It was there that your spirit was forged. Not in success. Not in celebration. But in fire. In rejection. In isolation. In betrayal. In responsibility you didn't ask for, but carried anyway. That's where the weapon was formed. You didn't realize it then. You thought you were just surviving. But survival, Capricorn, was the first sign of the awakening. Because here you are, still breathing, still rising, still showing up when the world gave you every reason to vanish. And that's no accident. They thought you were just quiet. But it was never silence. It was stillness. Stillness that carried prophecy. Stillness that held restraint when you could have exploded. Stillness that chose to rebuild in private rather than seek validation from those who never saw you. That is the kind of fire that terrifies darkness. That is the kind of weapon heaven forges in souls like yours. Let me tell you this, Capricorn. The people who laughed at your simplicity never understood the complexity of your strength. The ones who said you were too serious never understood the kind of burdens you were silently carrying for others. The ones who walked away had to. Because what you carry cannot be touched by hands that haven't been through the fire with you. You were never meant to be liked by everyone. You were meant to be respected by the universe. And now, the weapon is stirring. That quiet resilience that used to keep you going, now it's becoming clarity. That emotional numbness that protected you, now it's becoming discernment. That detachment that once felt like a flaw, now it's your spiritual radar, it senses falsehoods before they even arrive. You're no longer just surviving. You're awakening. So stay with me, Capricorn. Because what I'm about to show you isn't just a message. It's a mirror to everything your soul always knew but never had the words to explain. By the end of this journey, you'll understand why life shaped you the way it did. You'll understand that the fire inside you was not a burden. It was your signal. It was your blueprint. It was your proof. You'll finally understand the truth. The weapon inside you was never ordinary. And now, it's awakening. Part 1. The weapon hidden in plain sight. Capricorn, your strength has always confused people. They saw you rise after heartbreak. They watched you carry weight no one else would touch. They noticed how, when chaos erupted, you didn't panic, you calculated, you held still, you endured. But they never really understood it. Because your strength doesn't wear a crown. It doesn't shout. It doesn't ask for applause. That's because the weapon you carry is invisible. This weapon wasn't handed to you in a moment of glory. It was formed in the dark when no one was watching. It was born the day you were overlooked and chose not to complain. It sharpened when life broke your heart, and you showed up again anyway. It hardened when someone betrayed you, and you didn't retaliate, but chose wisdom over revenge. Capricorn, this weapon isn't made of steel. It's made of silence, of survival, of structure, of spiritual weight that only old souls like you can bear. And that's why they missed it. It's hidden in plain sight, not because it's weak, but because it's sacred. You've been told you're cold. You've been called emotionless, distant, too serious. But those words came from people who never had to build walls to survive. They didn't know that your stillness was how you protected your light. They didn't realize your quiet was never emptiness, it was control. And now, that very control is becoming direction. That patience is becoming precision. That silence is becoming a shield. Let me ask you this, Capricorn. Have you ever noticed how people come to you with their chaos? Because they sense you can hold what they can't. Have you ever wondered why you're the one everyone leans on? But no one really asks how you're doing. It's not because they don't care. It's because your energy tells them, this soul is armored. And that's the thing. Your weapon has been speaking long before your words ever did. You walk into a room, and the atmosphere changes. Some feel peace. Others feel uncomfortable. They can't explain it, but they feel it. That's the hidden weapon. It isn't visible. It's felt. But this weapon didn't come cheap. It cost you years of loneliness. It cost you battles fought in silence. It cost you love you had to walk away from. Because you knew your path couldn't be shared with people still hiding from theirs. You became your own protector. You became your own anchor. And through that, the weapon was carved. Capricorn, this spiritual weapon isn't here to make you dominant. It's here to make you steady. You don't walk into people's lives to conquer them. You walk in to stabilize them. You don't speak to impress. You speak to shift the air, ground the chaos, realign what's been lost. And you don't carry power to intimidate. You carry it to reveal truth, to disarm illusion, to guide what's blind back into clarity. But here's what they didn't know. The weapon doesn't flash. It doesn't glitter. It doesn't roar. It works in the quiet hours. It works when you're praying for peace while others are chasing power. It works when you hold back tears in a meeting and show grace anyway. It works when you walk away from people who were never meant to walk beside your destiny and do it without burning bridges. Your power is in how little you need to prove. Capricorn, this is the secret. You are not just a person. You are a frequency, a vibration, a shift in the room. And that's why your weapon stays hidden. Because it's not meant to impress. It's meant to transform. They didn't give you the crown, but heaven gave you command. They didn't notice your pain, but heaven recorded every silent tear. They didn't see your worth, but now, they're feeling your presence, and it's shaking something inside them. Because what comes from heaven doesn't need to be seen. It just needs to be carried with reverence. And Capricorn, you have done just that. That's why the awakening has begun. Capricorn life lesson number 1. The power that is most real is the one you never have to explain. You don't need to convince anyone of your strength. You never did. The weapon inside you is enough. It always has been. And now that it's awakening, you'll begin to understand why silence was always your greatest shield and your greatest proof. Part 2. Why the storms were sent only to you. Capricorn, have you ever asked yourself, why does life keep giving me battles no one else seems to face? You've watched others stumble, but somehow, they were rescued. You've seen people break, but they were surrounded. But when it was your turn, the fall felt deeper. The silence louder. The pain heavier. And maybe, at some point, you whispered into the dark. Why me? Let me tell you why. Because your storms were never random. They were assignments. Every betrayal wasn't just heartbreak. It was a shaping. Every door that closed wasn't rejection. It was a redirection. Every season of isolation wasn't punishment. It was training. Capricorn, the storms were not sent to destroy you. They were sent to reveal you. Let's go back for a moment. Do you remember the first time you were forced to grow up faster than your years? When no one explained what was happening, but you had to hold it together anyway. That wasn't just trauma. That was the initiation of your weapon. Or the moment someone you trusted turned on you, not slowly, but suddenly. And you couldn't even defend yourself because truth wasn't being heard. That wasn't just injustice. It was the pressure that strengthened your discernment. Capricorn, the universe didn't abandon you. It entrusted you. Storms don't come to those who have nothing to lose. Storms come to those who are meant to rise. And the ones sent to mark AT, they aren't ordinary. Because you're not ordinary. You weren't meant to be fragile. You were meant to be forged. And forging is loud. Forging is messy. Forging is violent, not to the soul, but to the ego. It strips everything that can't hold weight. And what's left is what can carry legacy. You've been carrying burdens your friends couldn't understand. You've been showing up when your heart was on the edge of quitting. You've made decisions not just for yourself, but for your entire family, your lineage, your future children, your community, even when no one thanked you. Capricorn, that kind of soul isn't trained in sunshine. It's trained in storms. And so the storms came. Not because you were cursed, but because heaven trusted you with storms that would destroy someone else. Have you ever noticed this strange pattern? You enter a space, and chaos begins to clear. You join a team, and things start to organize. You become someone's friend, and suddenly their life starts moving forward. But you're left wondering why you always feel the weight, the silence, the delays, the shadows. It's because you've been assigned the spiritual responsibility of being the anchor, the one who holds steady when no one else can. This is why life gave you storms others couldn't see, so that you would learn to walk by faith, not by applause, so that your inner world would become so rooted that external winds wouldn't matter. This is why you were always the old soul among the young, the one who saw through people before they revealed themselves, the one who felt energies in the room long before words were spoken. You weren't paranoid. You were prepared. Let me share a secret. There's a reason the enemy always came for your peace. Because peace is the foundation of power. And if he couldn't shake your foundation, he could never stop your future. So the strategy was always this. Betray them young. Hurt them silently. Exhaust them quietly. Make them question their worth. Convince them they're alone. Because if Capricorn ever realizes what they carry, everything changes. And guess what? You're realizing it now. You were trained in the dark, so you could shine in places where light was never welcome. You were pushed beyond breaking, so you could lead others through what would have killed them. You were kept hidden, because what's sacred must be guarded until the right moment. And Capricorn, that moment has come. Capricorn life lesson number 2. The weight you carried was never just about you, it was training for everything you were meant to carry later. So don't curse the storms anymore. They were never your enemies. They were your initiation. They didn't come to break you. They came to show you that what you carry inside cannot be broken. Part 3. When the world misread your silence. Capricorn, the world has always had something to say about your silence. They've called you cold, too serious, emotionally unavailable, unreachable. But what they never asked was, what is this soul protecting? Because your silence, Capricorn, was never about absence. It was about containment. You don't speak unless your words can build something. You don't reveal your thoughts unless they have weight. You don't show emotion unless it's earned. And that confuses people who are addicted to noise. To them, stillness feels like distance. Self-protection feels like rejection. Your boundaries feel like walls. But those who live in chaos cannot understand the grace of quiet power. What they misread as detachment was actually spiritual restraint. While others screamed for attention, you built a fortress inside. While others overshared their pain, you turned yours into bricks, into walls, into sacred rooms no one could enter without honor. Capricorn, your silence is not a lack of feeling. It is the presence of something too sacred to waste. You've always known this intuitively, haven't you? That when you speak, people lean in. That your words carry gravity. That your silence alone can disarm a room. That's no coincidence. It's because your energy is precise. You were never meant to be loud. You were meant to be undeniable. But let's be honest. There were times when their misunderstanding wounded you. When someone you loved said, "You're so distant, do you even care?" And the truth is, you cared so deeply. You didn't want to taint your love with noise. Or when friends said, "Why don't you open up more?" But what they didn't see was the ocean of emotion behind your eyes. Held back not because you couldn't feel, but because you knew not everyone could swim there. Capricorn, this is your burden and your brilliance. You were born with the ability to hold what others drop, to see what others hide, to feel what others run from. But you also learned early on, not everyone is meant to carry your truth. So you chose silence, not to punish, but to preserve. Let me say this clearly. Your silence is not weakness. It is wisdom. It's the mark of a soul who has seen too much to waste time on explanation, of a spirit that values meaning over noise, of a heart that understands that not everything sacred should be spoken out loud. You are not emotionless. You are selective. You are not distant. You are discerning. You are not cold. You are covered in a spiritual armor forged by disappointment and matured by time. And the world that misread you, they were never meant to read you in the first place. Because sacred texts aren't read aloud in public. They are whispered in holy places to the ones who are ready. Capricorn, you are that sacred text. This is why some people didn't stay. They couldn't handle the silence. Because in your quiet, they saw themselves. And they weren't ready for that kind of mirror. It's why others got angry at you for not reacting the way they wanted. Because they couldn't control your energy. Because you refused to be drawn into chaos. You were protecting something holy. Your weapon was resting in your stillness. And even then, it was doing its work. Because here's the truth. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of alignment. You speak only when needed. You move only when it's time. You engage only when it builds, not when it drains. That's why the awakening happening now is so powerful. Because when a Capricorn finally begins to use their voice intentionally, the atmosphere around them shifts. Not through volume, but through vibration. You were never trying to disappear. You were trying to preserve what others recklessly spent. And now, those who once misread you, they'll come back with different eyes. Because the silence that once confused them has become the very anchor they're searching for. Capricorn life lesson number 3. Let them misread your silence. It was never meant for everyone to understand. Your power is not loud. It's layered. And now that this power is awakening, they won't be able to ignore what your stillness has always said. I carry something sacred, and silence is how I protect it. Part 4. This is why you survived what others couldn't. Capricorn, there's a question you've asked yourself more than once. How did I survive that? The heartbreak, the betrayal, the loss, the silence, the moment when everything collapsed and no one came to help. You were there, lying in the ashes of something that should have destroyed you. And yet somehow, you got back up. Not because you were ready, not because you were healed, but because something inside you refused to stay down. And now, years later, you finally get to ask the deeper question. What was it inside me that kept going, when even I didn't want to? Capricorn, the answer is simple. It was the weapon. The one heaven placed in your spirit before you were even born. The one that others couldn't see, but you carried it anyway. The one that didn't shine like armor, but held like fire beneath your ribs. Let's go back. Think of that one moment. The night when someone walked out without explanation. The week you lost everything you thought was secure. The month where every door slammed shut, and even the mirror stopped recognizing you. You were done. Your voice was tired. Your soul was threadbare. And still, you moved. Even if just 1 inch forward. Even if just one breath. Capricorn, that was not willpower. That was the weapon awakening. Others would have crumbled. Not because they're weak, but because they weren't built for what you were built for. Some people require validation. You moved without it. Some people need comfort to keep going. You kept going in the cold. Some people scream for help. You whispered to the silence and waited for your own soul to answer. That's not survival. That's spiritual authority. Capricorn, you don't just endure. You evolve inside of hardship. You don't just rise again. You rise higher, harder, wiser. You don't just move on. You transform the very wound that tried to silence you into wisdom that others come to for light. And that's what makes you rare. Because where others break, you build. Where others run, you root. Where others lose faith, you find new dimensions of it. You are not strong because you avoided pain. You are strong because you learned to carry it differently. And not just carry it, but alchemize it. You've turned betrayal into boundaries. Loss into legacy. Loneliness into leadership. Capricorn, this is what the weapon does. It doesn't protect you from every blow. It teaches you how to become unbreakable through every blow. But make no mistake. There were moments when you almost gave up. When you questioned if it was worth it. When you saw others dancing through life, untouched by the kind of heaviness you carried. And you wondered, am I cursed? But now you know better. You were never cursed. You were called. And the calling came with fire. Because heaven doesn't trust delicate weapons in dangerous times. Heaven needed a soul who could withstand. And that soul was you. Let me tell you something sacred. Every time you stood up again, you activated the power inside you. Every time you held back tears in public, you deepened your resilience. Every time you said nothing instead of defending your name, you became a vessel for divine timing. This is why others watched you and couldn't understand. They saw the chaos in your life, but never saw you collapse. They saw what happened to you, but they never saw what was happening within you. And now that the awakening is here, they will finally understand. Capricorn didn't survive by chance. Capricorn survived by fire. Capricorn life lesson number 4. Your survival was not luck, it was the invisible work of your soul preparing for its true calling. So don't look at your past and ask why it had to be so hard. Look at your reflection now, and realize why heaven knew you could handle it. The weapon inside you is awakening, and the proof is the fact that you're still standing, stronger than ever, quieter than before, and more unstoppable than the world is ready for. Part 5. How to activate the weapon. Capricorn, you've carried this weapon your entire life. But now, it's time to stop carrying it unconsciously. It's time to activate it. Because a weapon that's never drawn in the right moment is not protection. And strength that stays dormant cannot shape destiny. This next season of your life won't just be about survival. It will be about deliberate transformation. And for that, you must learn how to use what heaven gave you. 1. Speak with authority, not volume. You don't need to raise your voice to shift the room. In fact, Capricorn, your power lies in how little you have to say. Because when you do speak, the energy shifts. But now, it's time to stop hiding your wisdom just to make others comfortable. Use your voice to interrupt lies. To plant truth in places others have abandoned. To speak peace into chaos, not with noise, but with weight. That is how you activate the weapon. By speaking only when it matters, and when it does, speaking with spiritual fire. 2. Choose stillness over reaction. You've always had this. That moment where something inside you says, don't respond now. Wait. Watch. That's not hesitation. That's intuition sharpening your awareness. When the world provokes you, choose clarity. When lies are thrown at you, choose silence soaked in wisdom. When fear tries to grip your throat, choose breath, presence, stillness. The weapon inside you is directional, not chaotic. It moves with precision, not panic. 3. Pray differently now. Capricorn, your prayers are not decorative. They are interventions. When you pray, things move in silence. Cycles break. Energy shifts. Doors open that no human hand could touch. But it's time to pray like you know what you carry. When you speak over your bloodline, know that you're severing ancestral chains. When you bless your home, know that you're planting protection over generations. You're not just praying. You're governing. Heaven listens differently to those who've been through the fire. 4. Guard your energy like sacred ground. You are not like others. You don't bounce back from chaos easily, because your soul operates on deep, ancient frequencies. So protect your environment. Don't let noisy people into your inner sanctum. Don't entertain conversations that chip away at your peace. Don't explain your discernment, just follow it. The weapon requires sanctuary. You are that sanctuary. So clean your space. Protect your spirit. Treat your time like gold. Because your energy isn't random, it's royal. 5. Walk in alignment, not approval. Capricorn, your weapon activates best when your spirit aligns with truth. Not trends, not popularity, not pressure. You've never fit into boxes. That was the design. So why keep trying? Say yes only when your body says yes. Leave when the soul whispers, this is no longer your place. Stop shrinking to make others feel tall. You weren't born to be relatable. You were born to be responsible for light. And here's the most powerful part. 6. Heal silently. Move boldly. You don't need to announce your process. You don't need to document every step. The weapon does its best work in hidden chambers. Heal where no one can interfere. Grow in places that others can't contaminate. And when it's time to move, don't ask permission. Just go. Just rise. Just walk through the gates that once locked you out, knowing now they were never shut. They were waiting for the weapon to wake up. Capricorn, this is how you activate it. By moving with purpose instead of pressure. By blessing instead of reacting. By protecting instead of explaining. By building when others are breaking. By choosing peace so sharp, it stuns your enemies into silence. And remember, this weapon isn't for pride. It's for people. It's for generations. It's for souls that will walk freer because you walked through fire first. Capricorn life lesson number 5. The weapon isn't activated by what you feel, it's activated by what you choose. You are not responsible for being everything to everyone, but you are responsible for carrying what heaven trusted only you with. Now, carry it like you know what it can do, because it's time. The world doesn't need another voice shouting in the chaos. It needs the still, strong, certain steps of someone who carries the divine. Part 6. Why heaven chose you, not them. Capricorn, let's ask the question most people never dare to ask. Why you? Why were you the one born into that family? Why were you the one given the hard path? Why were you the one chosen to carry the pain while others walked freely? The answer isn't easy, but it is sacred. Heaven didn't choose you because you were perfect. Heaven chose you because you could be trusted, not with comfort, but with calling. Not with applause, but with assignment. Capricorn, not everyone was built to hold the weight you carry. They admire the mountain, but they don't know what it costs to climb. They love the way you stand alone, but they forget how often it broke you just to stay upright. They want your resilience, but they would have crumbled under even a fraction of your early storms. Let's be honest. There were times you looked around and thought, why is their life easier? Why do they get to be soft? Why do they get to be believed, while I have to prove myself? Why do I carry everyone else's pain and still have no one who sees mine? Capricorn, it's not because you're cursed. It's because heaven looked down and whispered, that one can handle legacy. Anyone can want a crown, but not everyone can endure the crushing that comes before it. Anyone can post light, but not everyone can walk through the darkness it takes to earn it. Anyone can ask for power, but only the rare few can hold it without letting it corrupt them. And that's you. You didn't become strong by accident. You became strong because life kept asking you to choose. Collapse or become wiser. Break or become better. Hate or become holy. And time after time, you chose the higher road. Even when no one clapped. Even when no one stayed. Even when the pain made no sense. You kept walking. And that's why you were chosen. Capricorn, people often confuse loudness with strength. But heaven knows the truth. Real power walks quietly. It doesn't need to prove. It doesn't need to announce. It simply moves in alignment, in silence, in fire. Some people were born to be seen. You were born to see what others miss. Some were born to impress. You were born to impact. Some want validation. You want results. That's the difference. That's why heaven placed the mantle on you, not them. But let's also name this truth. Being chosen didn't always feel like a gift. It felt like isolation. It felt like abandonment. It felt like being the one no one understood, the one carrying everyone else's weight, the one who didn't get to cry in peace. But now, looking back, you understand. You weren't being left behind. You were being lifted above. Set apart. Not out of arrogance, but out of alignment. Because those who are called to lead silently must often be misunderstood loudly. Capricorn, you were not called to fit in. You were called to forge paths, to break cycles, to interrupt patterns, to anchor peace in bloodlines that never knew it, to carry strength through generations that only knew survival. That kind of soul can't be built in ease. It must be carved through fire, pressure, silence, and sacred responsibility. And that is why heaven chose you. Because heaven didn't need someone who would use this weapon for ego. It needed someone who would use it for legacy. Heaven didn't want someone who'd shout in their victory. It needed someone who would carry grace when no one noticed. Heaven didn't need loud mouths. It needed quiet builders. And Capricorn, that builder, is you. Capricorn life lesson number 6. Being chosen doesn't always feel like a reward. Sometimes it feels like being the only one awake in a world that's still sleeping. But that's how awakening begins. With one soul carrying something the world can't see, until the time comes to reveal it. And Capricorn, that time, is now. Part 7. The legacy this weapon will build. Capricorn, the weapon you carry was never meant to stay within you. It was placed there to build something that will outlive you. Something that your future children will feel even if they never hear your story. Something your community will walk through without realizing it was your silent sacrifice that opened the path. Capricorn, you are not just surviving life. You're shaping the world that comes after you. This weapon doesn't just protect. It plants. It doesn't just shield. It sows. And everything you've endured, the nights you held yourself together, the days you fought without applause, the cycles you broke without recognition, it's all creating a ripple. A spiritual blueprint. A new structure in a bloodline that never had one before. Do you know what legacy truly is? It's not what you pass down in money. It's not what you leave behind in status. It's what you shift in the atmosphere so that others breathe easier because you walked through fire first. Capricorn, you are a pattern breaker. You were born into a history full of wounds, not to repeat them, but to rewrite them. Where others passed down pain, you're passing down peace. Where others normalized struggle, you're establishing stability. Where others gave up, you built. Quietly, patiently, powerfully. That's what the weapon inside you is building. You see, this isn't just about you having a better life. It's about future generations having a different standard. Because you said, it ends with me. You said no more scarcity. No more fear-based parenting. No more staying silent when your spirit is screaming for truth. No more pretending to be okay just to keep the peace. You chose to face what others ignored. You chose to feel what others numbed. You chose to heal what others passed down. Capricorn, that is sacred work. And that's what legacy is made of. Maybe no one clapped for you, but your ancestors did. The ones who never had the tools. The ones who prayed for someone like you to rise. And now, here you are. Building what they couldn't. Breaking what they couldn't name. Becoming what they couldn't even imagine. This isn't just your weapon. It's their answered prayer. And what about those who come after you? They will walk through doors that were once locked for you. They will speak without fear where you once stayed silent. They will know rest where you only knew responsibility. Not because life became easier, but because you laid the foundation. Capricorn, the weapon you carry is not for display. It's for construction. You are building a spiritual legacy, invisible to the eye, but undeniable in its impact. You've probably already seen it begin. A younger sibling who now speaks more freely. A niece who feels safe crying in your presence. A friend who reclaims their boundaries because of your example. A parent who finally says, "I'm proud of you," after years of silence. These are not random moments. They are evidence that your inner weapon is shaping the outer world. Quietly, profoundly, permanently. Capricorn, the world doesn't need more influencers. It needs architects of healing. And that's what you are. While others perform, you build. While others chase moments, you craft futures. That is why the enemy tried to distract you. Why life tried to exhaust you. Why people tried to discourage you. Because your legacy was always a threat. To darkness, to patterns, to every lie that said nothing can change. But you did change it. Not with a scream, but with a decision. Not with revenge, but with responsibility. Not by waiting for someone to save you, but by becoming what others were never willing to become. Capricorn, you are the one. Capricorn, life lesson number 7. Your legacy is built in every moment you choose healing over hiding, truth over silence, and love over fear. Don't underestimate what you're doing, just because it isn't loud. Because one day, someone will say, "I never knew peace was possible, until I saw the way you lived." And that will be your greatest monument. Part 8. Your presence is the proof. Capricorn, what if I told you that your weapon doesn't need to be seen? Because it's already felt. What if the proof that you carry something sacred isn't in your words, but in your walk? Not in your resume, not in your titles, but in the way the room shifts when you enter it. In the silence that follows you. In the strange mix of calm and respect that your presence carries even when you say nothing at all. Capricorn, that's not attitude. That's authority. You've probably noticed it by now. The people who admire you but never say it. The ones who ask for your advice, then act like they weren't listening but later follow every word. The quiet respect in people's tone when they speak your name, even if they don't say it to your face. That's the weapon working. And just as often, you've felt the discomfort. People who avoid you for no reason. People who challenge you, test you, try to diminish your presence, not because you did anything, but because your energy reveals theirs. You don't even have to speak truth. Your existence exposes what's false. Capricorn, this is what happens when heaven places something rare inside someone. Your light doesn't always make people feel good. Sometimes it makes them feel seen, and they weren't ready for that. But that's not your burden to carry. You were never meant to dim to comfort the blind. You were meant to walk with vision, even if others are still groping in the dark. This is the mystery of your presence. You walk in, and without even trying, the gossip dies down. The chaos begins to settle. The energy recalibrates. Why? Because your aura doesn't entertain noise. It carries a frequency of structure, stillness, and divine strategy. Some call it energy. Some call it an aura. Some call it vibe. But let's tell the truth. It's spiritual gravity. You carry a vibration rooted in truth. And truth has a weight to it. You don't chase attention, but attention notices you. You don't demand respect, but disrespect doesn't last long in your presence. You don't speak often, but when you do, things move. And yes, it comes with its burdens. People project things onto you because they feel things they don't understand. They assume you're arrogant, closed off, unapproachable. But they're not reacting to you. They're reacting to the spiritual weight that surrounds you. Your presence challenges their chaos. Your focus reveals their distraction. Your peace threatens their noise. You are a living contradiction to the life they've accepted. That's why some keep their distance. But don't confuse distance for rejection. Sometimes, it's reverence in disguise. Capricorn, your presence speaks before your mouth does. It tells people you're not here for games. It lets energies know you see through layers. It holds space, not for attention, but for alignment. And when the weapon inside you is fully awakened, you will no longer question, why do people react to me this way? You will understand. It's not about me. It's about what I carry. Let me say this clearly. The fact that people feel you before you speak. The fact that some are drawn to you without knowing why. The fact that children open up to you. And even strangers tell you secrets they've never told anyone. That's not random. It's recognition. It's the soul remembering something sacred. And Capricorn, you are the keeper of that sacred energy. This is why you no longer need to explain yourself. Not to friends who don't understand your quiet. Not to lovers who mistake your boundaries for rejection. Not to co-workers who try to decode your calm. Let them wonder. Because your presence is the answer to questions they haven't found the courage to ask. Capricorn life lesson number 8. What's real doesn't need validation. And what's sacred doesn't seek permission. Capricorn, your very existence is the proof. You don't need to argue your worth. You don't need to defend your path. You are the living evidence. That strength can be silent. That power can walk softly. That heaven can place something eternal in a soul. And trust them to carry it well. That soul is you. Conclusion, the final awakening and life lesson. Capricorn, if you've made it to this point, you already know. This wasn't just a message. It was a mirror. A mirror to your spirit. A reflection of a strength you've always had but were never allowed to fully claim. Until now. All your life, you've been made to feel like your silence was a flaw. Like your self-control was coldness. Like your discipline was detachment. But it wasn't. It was refinement. It was preparation. It was the slow awakening of something the world could never understand. Because it wasn't given to the world. It was given to you. The storms didn't break you. They exposed what was already inside you. The betrayals didn't destroy you. They carved clarity. The isolation didn't end you. It aligned you. And the weight you carried, it wasn't a burden. It was the handle of the weapon, measured to fit only your hand. Capricorn, hear this clearly. You don't need anyone to anoint you. You already were. The fire you survived was the oil. The silence you kept was the temple. And the decision you made to keep going, even when no one clapped, was the vow. This is not the end of the message. It's the beginning of your awareness. Because now that the weapon is awakened, you will begin to notice the shifts. You'll begin to feel a new clarity in old places. A new power in your stillness. A new boldness in your boundaries. People will react differently. Some in awe, some in fear, some in confusion. Don't explain. Just align. Because you are not here to be understood by everyone. You are here to be undeniable in your purpose. From this moment forward, I want you to remember this. You were chosen not to dominate, but to disrupt what is false. Not to be loud, but to realign what was broken. Not to be liked, but to lead those who are lost back to truth. And the truth is this. You carry heaven's weapon, not made of steel, but of spirit. Not shaped by man, but by mystery. And no storm, no betrayal, no silence can take it from you. So the next time life tests you, don't ask, why me? Stand still and remember, because I was trusted. And the next time someone doubts your power, you don't need to say a word, because the room will already feel it. Capricorn final life lesson. Some were born to echo the world, but you were born to shift it. Don't forget that. Not when it's hard, not when it's quiet, not even when you're tired, because what's inside you was never ordinary, and now it's awakening. Now, Capricorn, it's your turn to speak. Go to the comments and write, "I carry heaven's weapon." Write it not just for yourself, but for every version of you who once thought they weren't enough. For the inner child who was overlooked. For the version of you who cried in silence and kept going anyway. Write it for the world to see, and for the shadows to take notice. And if this message stirred something inside you, subscribe to this channel, Zodiac Secrets Revealed. This is your space, your tribe, your truth. We don't do fluff here. We speak fire. Because Capricorn, the time for hiding your power is over. And the time for awakening what heaven placed inside you has just begun.